Good evening, Your Honor, and may it please the Court. Today we will discuss the constitutionality of the statement acquired from Jamie Hayes by Detective Thomas on the evening of May 16, 2014. Defense moves to exclude this statement on the grounds that it was acquired through unconstitutional circumstances due to considerable coercion on behalf of Officer Thomas. The true test of admissibility and of evidence into a court of law is that the statement is made freely, voluntarily, and without compulsion or inducement of any sort, as established by Haynes v. State of Washington. In the case of Jamie Hayes, this protection was violated by Officer Thomas. On the evening of May 16th, Jamie Hayes was coerced into making the statement in question. This statement cannot be deemed admissible due to the totality of the circumstances and that it rejects Jamie Hayes' Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination. The statement itself was made following 16 hours of interrogation, culminating with direct coercion on behalf of Officer Thomas. Near the end of the interrogation, Officer Thomas told Jamie that her mother's boss had been informed of her arrest and that he hoped it would not cause her any trouble at work. This was a direct attack on Jamie's sympathies. Jamie, a girl of only 18 years of age at the time, had just moved out. Coming from a home with only one parent, her mother, whom she calls 3 to 4 times a week, she only had one mentor to look up to and protect. In addition, Jamie's mother cannot pay the tuition rates of Central Coast University, as she simply works a clerical job at the Madison Police Department. Despite all this, Officer Thomas thought it best to alert Mrs. Hayes' employer of her daughter's arrest. And though he claims he hoped it would not cause any trouble at work, this was simply Officer Thomas's way of gaining leverage over Jamie by quietly threatening her mother's welfare. Officer Thomas will testify that soon after this, Jamie began to show signs of frustration and made the incriminating statement. Proposing a threat to one of Jamie's closest loved ones, whether Officer Thomas truly intended to cause problems or not, produced the statement in question and therefore must be considered the proximate cause of that statement. In addition to the emotional coercion, the will of Jamie Hayes had been thoroughly worn down by fatigue and official pressure throughout the entirety of May 16th. To start, the interrogation itself lasted for 16 hours, with only a few bathroom breaks and no rest or sleep. Ashcraft v. Tennessee ruled that a lengthy interrogation can be considered unconstitutional, and this undeniably applies to the case of Jamie Hayes. Jamie went 2 full days with no rest or sleep before the threat to her mother was made, resulting in the statement. State v. Brown also made the distinction between number of hours of confinement and number of hours of interrogation, and ruled that 5 hours of interrogation are not unconstitutional. But Jamie Hayes was interrogated for more than 3 times this length. Fatigue is also addressed in Spano v. New York, in which one of the contributing factors in determining the unconstitutional statement was that the interrogation itself lasted into the early hours of the morning. Jamie Hayes began her interrogation in the early hours of the morning, and it continued later into the evening with no rest at all. Based on this alone, one must consider fatigue to be a contributing factor in the totality of the circumstances. Defense does not argue that the length of the interrogation alone makes the statement unconstitutional. Defense argues that Jamie went 2 full days with no rest, no sleep, and ultimately had a heartstring played by Officer Thomas. While many of the factors in this case are highly debatable as to constitutionality, the totality of the circumstances bring us to a statement made by a worn-down 18-year-old college freshman who, after 16 hours of interrogation, had the welfare of the woman who raised her threatened. Based on all this, defense requests the statement made be removed from trial. Thank you, Your Honor.